to the Israel Guys. We believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should always be connected to the land and the people of Israel. Guys, happy to have you here. Make sure you subscribe, follow along. We'd love to hear from you in the comment section as to what you think about today. Always do. You know, we were talking about, before we dive into the news of the week, we were talking like just before we started filming that, you know, it's not always easy to do this show. It's not always easy to encapsulate what's happening in Israel. Tough times every single day, every single week of what goes on in Israel. And so you might sometimes get a little bit more of a raw perspective. And I think that's what we want. That's what we want you guys to hear as well. And we want to interact with you as well. So be sure to always let us know what you're thinking in the comments. But I kind of wanted to open with that because I think some of us or all of us are, you know, sometimes our heads are spinning a little bit. You know, this week we have good news, you know, harder news. And the good news, Jews are now permitted to sing and dance openly on the Temple Mount, according to Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. Like, that's amazing. That's an amazing, amazing thing. At the same time, a 14-year-old boy was shot by the IDF, a Jewish boy, in what they're calling settler violence, when we know there's a lot more behind that story. That's really tough. Some reports are now that Hamas has already rejected the most recent Qatar-Trump ceasefire deal. I haven't seen it in a lot of news, so I think it will probably come out more and more as to whether that's true or not. Bibi Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, headed to Washington, D.C. on Monday, July 7th, to meet with the Trump administration. But probably some of the biggest news is that Israeli government, every single Likud minister, right, Josh, is calling on Bibi Netanyahu to apply sovereignty in Judea and Samaria by July 27th. That's like 3 weeks from now.
If I would get you really excited about something, I think it's something that all of us, the four of us on the show, are really our lives are dedicated to, is presenting and representing the Jewish people of Judea and Samaria. It's like one thing that we've all done, and we've done this in a biblical sense, and we've done this in like a sense of, and a hope for the day when sovereignty would arrive to the broader areas, not just to Tel Aviv. I mean, when Jews first started building in Tel Aviv, it was also called illegal, and they weren't allowed to build. And then slowly the Jewish people have built, and now we're like at this moment in history that I'm like with bated breath about. And when I saw July 27th, I was like, could it actually be? So if I was to ask the long time, Jeremy, Ari, what do you feel? There's almost like a sense of like, I don't know if it could really happen. You have that same like, I know all the ministers are just signing off. We're talking about defense minister. Like,
can I frame it up real quick before we dive into the reactions?
Frame it up.
Okay, so Amit Siegel, very well-respected journalist here in Israel, put on X this week, all Likud ministers have written to Prime Minister Netanyahu, urging him to apply sovereignty over Judea and Samaria before the Knesset summer session ends on July 27th. So he's saying like the Knesset session is going to end for the summer. It'll be a couple of months before they're back in. Just to read a couple of quotes from the letter that they signed. They said, "We, ministers and members of Knesset, call for the immediate application of Israeli sovereignty and law over Judea and Samaria. Now is the time to pass a government decision on applying sovereignty by the end of the Knesset summer session." I'll skip down. The initiative was organized by the Yesha Council, which is the Judea and Samaria Council, working with political and public leadership to advance this historic move. The strategic partnership, support, and backing of the United States and President Donald Trump create a window of opportunity to lead this move now and to ensure Israel's security for generations to come. There's more to the letter. We'll link down to it down below. But just to name a few of the people who have signed this letter, because I was pretty impressed. Because as all politics, you know, you have people who you know are like far left, far right, center. I was surprised to see some fairly big names, including a lot of ministers. Ministers in the Israeli government are like secretaries in the U.S. government, I guess, like Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State. They have ministers here. So you have Amir Ohana, who is the Speaker of the Knesset, Yair Levin, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Justice, Israel Katz, Minister of Defense. Would you say Minister of Defense is like the number 2 in the Israeli government? Probably, right? Like absolutely. That's pretty big. Minister of Education, Transportation, Roads. I mean, Nir Barkat, who has been a contender for the prime minister for years. A lot of big names here advocating for immediate application of Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. I know there's been calls for this for years, but it feels like a bigger move for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, it feels to me like things are actually different right now. They're different in the sense that Iran is just, whatever Iran wants to claim that they won the war, like everybody on earth saw what Israel did to Iran, bringing them to their knees in the most miraculous way, and then America coming in, putting the nail in the coffin, or so it seemed. And even now, when I walk through the areas of Judea, Samaria, deep near Arab villages, I feel a different energy. Mm-hmm. I feel like less of a threat of them throwing rocks, less of a threat of them raising their heads in their genocidal desire. There's been a moment of humbling, like after the 6-Day War. There's stories and stories and stories of how Jews were able to walk into Ramallah and Jenin and Tulkarem, and they were approached with candies and food by what were before then terrorists, because that's what their mind understands. They have a different grasp of reality in the world than we do, and they respect strength, and they see kindness and compassion as weakness, right? So we just brought them to their knees, but now it's happening again. It's so anticlimactic, I don't even know what to do about it. But now, they're talking about, Trump is saying the 2-state solution, and we're saying that. So on the one hand, Trump is coming in and is trying to impose things like the 2-state solution. On the other hand, within Israel, the ministers and the nation, why are the ministers saying that? Because the nation is waking up. Bibi's term for this last war, like the rising lion, that is the best description of the nation of Israel. But we still have leadership that's not quite in line, but the nation is bringing the leaders with them. That's what I feel like is happening. So to answer your question about sovereignty, it feels like this may actually happen. All of the ingredients are different. We've heard it throughout the years. We're already jaded and scarred, and we protect ourselves from any sort of optimism because we've heard it again and again and again, and it never happens. But now it feels like something is different, and it actually could happen.
Well, we always talked about the head of the snake being Iran. Like, that's the head of the snake. If we take out Iran, Hamas will crumble, Hezbollah won't have a chance. But the truth is, the core of this whole battle is the land of Israel. It is the Temple Mount. And things on the Temple Mount are changing. Luke just said, dance, worship, outwardly singing and dancing on the Temple Mount. The last time both you and I were on the Temple Mount, both of us were arrested for praying quietly on the Temple Mount. And now we're able to sing, dance, and worship loudly. I mean, if you want the barometer of success of Israel's war, all you really need to do is look at what's happening first in the land of Israel and then zoom in on the Temple Mount. And the more freedoms that people have on the Temple Mount, the closer we are to freedom for the entire world. But to me, this sovereignty move, it's too good to believe. I mean, 27 days, it has been such a battle, and to me, it seems a little bit like political maneuvering, meaning if we really are sort of on the cusp or the transitioning from the kingdom of Saul toward the kingdom of David, we're still in the kingdom of Saul. We don't have what it takes to actually declare sovereignty, and end the game, finish it off. We left Khamenei still alive. Israel still doesn't really have defined borders. We're just not there. And if we are there, then that really is actually transitioning into what would be the kingdom of David.
Right. And when you look at Prime Minister Netanyahu, it's important to look back at the Bible to really understand the depth of what we're doing. I was thinking about Trump when he said, both of these guys they've been fighting for so long, they don't know what the F they're doing. You remember that? Everybody, the whole world saw that. The president drops the F-bomb. Everybody sort of loved him for it. But when you think about that, I'm not sure that he was right. I think the only one that doesn't know what the F is happening is him, because both Iran and Israel understand what's at stake in this war. The stake of all of mankind, all of humanity, the future of the world. This is the battle of light against darkness, and both of us know it, and both of us are aware of it, that this goes back, as we said, Khamenei was Haman, right? Hamani. That goes back to Haman and back to Agag, and this deep, irrational Jewish hatred that is festering in the hearts of these people to the degree where they get their entire life force from it. Right. And so Trump doesn't understand the historical, biblical, cosmic consequences of what we're dealing with. So within the nation itself, the nation is arising, our souls are being lit up, and we're trying to bring Bibi back. But a leopard doesn't change its spots. He's a pragmatist over a man of true faith. He's a good man. Saul was a good man. But Bibi is a pragmatist, and the Davidic leadership is going to be faith and principles above pragmatism, even if it doesn't make sense. Trump says, Israel, send your jets back. No. This time, we're going to cut off the head of Agag. Mm-hmm. We're going to finish them off.
Well, I think it's interesting that at the same time where you have so many, like most of the ministers in the Israeli government pushing for sovereignty, you also have, like, one day you have that, the next day you wake up to the rumors of a new deal of the century, and Trump's going to force Israel to support the idea of the two-state solution again. And like you're saying, it feels like just such like a confusing narrative. But really, what it comes down to is like, why should this be Trump's decision? Why should this be America's decision? It's literally Israel needs to decide what they want. The nation of Israel has to speak, and that's what we're seeing with the ministers. It's just a question of, can the ultimate leadership? You have the number 2 guy in Israel's Knesset, and then all of the, the next 10 after him, the next 20 supporting this idea feels to me like it's really Bibi's decision now.
I can remember.
Am I wrong about that?
I can remember back in the day, Luke, and we've been here for 20 years now. I remember, I guess it was 2006. You guys remember this? Where there was just so much between 2005, 6, 7, just really ruckus years for Judea and Samaria. At that time, the population was quite a bit lower. Now we're like 500,000+ now living here. Then it was, very little population in comparison to what we are today. And I remember that the wars have always been is what really saves Israel. I remember here in the Mount of Blessing community, there was, maybe, 1,000 people. It was a very, small community. And I remember the Israeli government was putting they came through, they took away all the weapons from everybody that lived here. And they were going to do an expulsion, really similar to what they planned down in Gaza, 2005 and 6. And I remember living through this moment where this was like heavy on everyone. Are we going to lose? Are we going to have to be moved out of Judea and Samaria? Are they really going to establish this two-state solution like all the governments of the world want? And are we going to be the brunt of that? Are the Jewish families that have returned here back then, 300,000, whatever it was, families are going to be moved out of these areas, our biblical heartland? And it was a real weight. And you guys lived through that too. And I remember that's right when the Lebanon War broke out. And then everything shifted and everybody was like locked. They went to war. And then it was like everybody forgot about what was happening back on the home front here. And since then, Judea and Samaria, the population has only increased. Industries have only been built deeper and bigger. Families have grown. Communities have grown. Multiple. The Jewish hold on their ancestral homeland has become that will never be reversed. Yet I'm still seeing, after this war, it's the whim of the outside, the nations. I could see Trump saying, the deal maker, if there's not a Palestinian state attached to this, I don't know that he has another concept, another idea for this. Even all these ministers are lining up, and it's back to your question, Luke. All of this support, even if Bibi himself was to align himself with the public of Israel, Trump could very well say, turn those bombers back. You're not doing it. No, because we have another agenda, and our agenda is the deal. We've got to get peace with all the Arab neighbors, and then I'm going to be seen as like this awesome guy, Trump, meaning I was able to bring peace to all these Arab neighbors and to Israel, and he's got to have a chip to deal. And if we throw Judea and Samaria out, what chip do you have left? That's my big question.
I would like to give you something practical that you can do to support Israel right now. If you, like many people I know, love Israel, but you're not able to make it over here to the Holy Land, or if you're inspired by the Jewish families living out God's promises on the front lines, or if you simply want to walk out God's words to Abraham in Genesis 12, blessing the nation of Israel, then you need to check out our friends over at Blessed by Israel. That's Blessed, B-U-Y, Israel. What these guys do is they bring the amazing products of families in the biblical heartland to people all around the world. From the land of Israel straight to your doorstep, you can enjoy awesome products. We're talking about extra virgin olive oil, coffee that's roasted to perfection by Agro Cafe, which I absolutely love and drink at least 1 cup every day here in the office, delicious raw honey, jewelry, organic spices, handcrafted ceramics, and much, much more. and everything is from wonderful small family-owned businesses in Israel. Be a part of encouraging and investing in the people of Israel and enjoy high-quality products at the same time. Go over to Blessed by Israel, that's Blessed, BUYIsrael.com to purchase beautiful boutique products and make your impact today. Use the code INVEST for $5 off your first order at blessedbuyisrael.com. You'll also find the link in the description below.
Well, my question is, after all that we've learned from the Iran war, all of these statements that are coming out of the Trump administration and Netanyahu's public statements, Palestinian state, it all seems like smoke and mirrors. No one really knows what's going on behind the scenes because the Republican platform has removed the Palestinian state from an agenda. They started calling the West Bank Judea and Samaria. They started publicly already declaring their support. So maybe what's happening now, maybe there is a deal that's kind of unfolding, but it's really hard to really make strong assumptions based on tweets that are being put out there.
But you don't really need assumptions. For me, it's very clear. Even if this is smoke and mirrors and it's political maneuvering, by Trump coming in and saying that some element of the Abraham Accords being implemented between Israel and the Arab world, being at all dependent on the establishment of a Palestinian state, even if all the conditions are science fiction altogether, and there's no way that they would be fulfilled, by just breathing the words contingent upon a Palestinian state, we've already lost. Because this is about the principles and the ideas much more than it's about whether it's smoke and mirrors and the strategic political maneuvering. By just saying that, we're losing our legitimacy, we're losing our force, we're losing our strength, we're admitting in the eyes of the nations of a total falsehood that we're willing to give up Judea and Samaria, the heartland of Israel, promised us by God, and we're going to make it a Palestinian state. Yeah, but they'll never actually do it. Who cares?
You know, the only
We've
stuff
already
I
said
actually
it.
saw on this was because I haven't seen anything specific to this from the U.S. I haven't seen anything. Have you seen anything? I haven't seen anything like, making statements aside from a State Department spokesperson that said this: our position regarding Israel, the choice it makes is that we stand with Israel in its decisions and how it views its own internal security. So they're saying it's up to Israel, which is great. That's the only thing we're seeing back. And then when they were asked, the same interview asked them, what do you think about a two-state solution? Does the U.S. still support a two-state solution? And their answer was the U.S. is being realistic about the current state of affairs.
I mean, the reality is they do. They still are pushing for a two-state solution, I think, because it all comes down to the people behind the scenes that we don't hear about.
Called the State Department.
And in the first Trump administration, it became very clear when the books were written afterwards that the people speaking into Trump's ear were very, very pro two-state solution. And I do think it's shifting, but I think it's slow. And I think now there's probably a pull in both directions. I think we're seeing
a State Department's person saying that it's Israel's internal security. They can do what they want. That sounds pretty awesome to me. That'd be the first time I think State Department has ever made such a statement in the history of State Department.
Well, what's amazing is that I'm sure the woke right, that's all about isolationism and not really getting involved in other people's business, they're going to get involved in our business now. They're going to want a Palestinian state. You can just see it unfolding right now.
Yeah. I do want to talk about, I want to explain to people what this actually looks like, because a lot of people don't realize what is sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. Because a lot of people think, well, Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2006. How hard would it really be to pull out of Judea and Samaria? And I just want to make sure people understand. Number one, a lot of people for years talked about annexation. Will Israel annex Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, which includes the Old City, the Western Wall, Mount of Olives, the Temple Mount, Judea and Samaria? And even if you're laughing at the idea of Israel giving up Jerusalem, every single negotiation about a two-state solution has included East Jerusalem, like Jerusalem, the very heart of Jerusalem. So it's not an unreasonable idea that they are going to demand that, right? In any kind of negotiation. The reality is annexation deals with territory that's not yours, right? I'm going to take Syria and annex it to my country. Israel liberated Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem in 1967. There's no other claim to this area. Jordan doesn't claim it. Nobody claims this area. Israel, the only thing Israel didn't do is they didn't take the final step. They didn't apply sovereign law, meaning this area is under a special administration of a department of the Israeli military, and there's the Oslo Accords and everything. But it's not annexing territories that's not theirs. It's simply applying Israeli law to these areas. That's the final step they need to take. Secondly, in Gaza, there was 8,000 Jews that were pulled out, right? And I think a couple thousand more in northern Samaria. We're talking about, if you want to include East Jerusalem, we're talking about 800,000 Israeli Jews that live in what the world considers the West Bank and the territory that they consider viable for a two-state solution. There is no practical situation in the world where 800,000 Jews are going to be pulled out of these areas and it turned into a Palestinian state. Like, there will be a war before that happens. I mean,
well, but what they do is they would start doing it slowly, like the lobster in the hot water, like we saw in Gush Katif, and they test and they test and they see what the response is and how much can they get away with, and how much the nation is willing to rise up and fight against it. I think the nation as a whole would fight against it. You know, on my ship from Cyprus to Israel, I was sitting with a woman that used to be left-wing, and she said, I used to really think settlements were the problem. And now me and all of my friends, we all see that it's because of you guys that we weren't October 7th. Really, they understand the critical element that the settlers serve and the settlements serve.
Yeah, it's much worse than October 7th. October 7th wasn't really a war. It was Arabs that broke through the boundary on trucks and bicycles, and they massacred so many Israelis. But a real war is kind of like Russia and the Ukraine with tanks and planes. And if you remove Judea and Samaria, so Israel will be about 9 miles wide at some points.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
if there's a real war with Iran, with 20 years from now, they actually invade Israel like Russia and the Ukraine, how long would that war last? Maybe it would last a morning. Israel would be totally destroyed. So the enemies of Israel are doing whatever they can to minimize Israel's borders to be totally indefensible. But not only that, Judea and Samaria are mountains. I mean, we've been busy in Gaza now for 2 years almost, and it's flat, sandy area in a small region. Judea and Samaria is in the heart of Israel in the mountain range. I mean, the nightmare it would be to actually go back in and clear out Judea and Samaria. I mean, it is suicidal, and that's why I don't think it's possible. And I think the State Department saying, let Israel make its own decision, I think is the true position of not only Ambassador Mike Huckabee, but I think that's just the position of the Republican Party.
But I think what Israel's going to need to do is to take a position in defiance of an order from America and from Trump. That's just in the cards. It's part of what is needed for the nation of Israel to arrive at the next step. And so I think that that's going to happen. You said if it's years from now when Iran attacks, I think a lot of us think, at least I feel in my heart and a bunch of people that I'm speaking to in the army, et cetera, that we're not talking about years, we're talking about months. That we have bought ourselves months. And not only that, in the ancient sages of Israel from thousands of years ago, again, they described exactly what's happening. They said when Persia falls into the hands of Edom, which for millennia we've known Edom as Esau is the West. When Persia falls into the hands of Edom, how could they even know the whole premise of that is already absurd that sentence even exists about the end of days and their description of it. It says the whole world will shake for 90 days and the kingdom of Edom will rule over the whole world for 9 months. And from it, the son of David, the Messiah, meaning will sprout, and Israel will go up and find good things and comfort. Meaning we have 9 months, according to this prophecy, believe it, don't believe it, be skeptical, it doesn't matter. But to me, there's like something to that we're talking about 90 days, 3 months.
Well, I did see, I didn't put it in the notes, but I saw that there's satellite images now of evidence that Iran is rebuilding and clearing out the Fordo nuclear site. Like they are moving as fast as they possibly can to clear away the rubble. Maybe they're trying to still figure out if there's anything left. I don't know, but they are determined to rebuild and get ready to attack again.
The disaster of this war is that they can rebuild.
Right.
Why didn't we actually just take out Khamenei, take out their nuclear reactors? And that's a matter of months to years that people are saying. It may be 90 days, it may be 90 weeks, but it's like somewhere we just kicked the can down the road. That was this. And what the problem is, the surprise attack has already happened. We sort of played that card. It's not like we'll be able to build another drone airbase inside Iran with Mossad agents that are going to, I mean, the surprise happened. It was like a one-shot deal and we didn't finish the job.
Right. You know, I think when you look at Trump coming in and like saying, break it up, guys, he didn't realize he's just a deal maker. He sees two different sides. He doesn't understand that one side is a genocidal, jihadist, totally consumed to their very essence at the destruction of the other side. He doesn't see the deep spiritual dimensions of what's going on. And so to keep the regime alive, it's just an implicit understanding of a lack of cognizance of the fact that this nation, going all the way back into history, has been solely, it's like the scorpion and the frog. Scorpion says to the frog, can you give me a ride across the river? And the frog says, yeah, but you're going to sting me. He says, if I sting you, we're both going to drown. Frog says, that's a good point. They go in and the scorpion stings the frog as they're drowning. Scorpion says, that's just what I do. I'm a one-trick pony. That's who I am. For us to allow that regime, the Ayatollah, to live, their whole purpose is it's going to happen again definitively. It showed a complete lack of understanding on Trump's part of what this is all about. And we don't need him to understand. We don't expect him. We needed to say, we get something that you don't, and we're going to do what we need to do to finish this off. And if you're mad, you're mad. But we have to finish this.
It's just Israel being strong and making their own decisions without constantly leaning on a foreign administration. Not that the U.S. and Israel shouldn't be allies and strategic partners and help each other out, but Israel just, at the end of the day, needs to be strong and make their own decisions.
I'm just thinking to myself, we're living in days of prophecy. Everything of the prophets is coming about in our days. We're seeing the return of the Jewish people. We're seeing the building up of the land of Israel against all odds. We're seeing this happen. Like it's impossible that the Jewish people would come back, not from one location, but from every little homes across the entire world, like scattered as you could possibly get on every little speck of land across the entire world. Jewish people are just coming in all over right now. Like we're living in it right now. We're seeing the Jewish people settle the land of Israel against all odds. You have 400 million people gathered around Israel that hate Israel so much that they wanted to see them absolutely destroyed. These regimes that are standing against Israel. Yet, against all odds, Israel's growing. We were just talking about it earlier. Israel's successes, even in the markets, are insane.
Yeah, stock market is booming in Israel.
Booming. The land of
Jeremy,
Israel.
how many billions did you say were invested?
$9.3 billion were invested in capital in the Israeli high-tech sector in the first half of 2025. That's in the middle of a war with Iran, with the Houthis bombing us, with Gaza in total shambles, and still is one of the strongest halves of any year in Israel's history.
That's what I want to like that. And then to tie that into wrapping up the conversation about sovereignty, it's kind of like laughable when you think about what the elites and the global powers be. They talk about it's got to be a two-state solution and we can't do sovereignty and stuff. But when you get down to like the everyday normal people, even if you just well, number one, like all the smart people know we should be investing in Israel. They're like, it doesn't matter. There's a war. We know what's up. We know what's going on. Smart move. Invest in the Israeli economy. If you drive through Judea and Samaria, you know there are hundreds of thousands of Israeli Jews investing in and building up the land of Israel. Beautiful communities, agriculture, some of the best wine in the entire world is coming out of Judea and Samaria. If you look at the Arab communities, all you see is empty houses. You see, you see no vision for the future. If you just drive on a road and you look to your left and right, you see hundreds of empty Arab homes, and you know that because you just see right through the windows. Nobody lives there. Nate stopped and talked to some Arabs yesterday in Judea, and asked him, like, because they were giving him the, we're so poor and we don't have money and we need food to feed our children. And he was like, well, what would it take for you to leave? Like, could you leave if you wanted to? And they're like, well, if we had money, we could leave. Like, they actually want to leave. In their own newspapers, we did a undercover video years ago, and in their own newspapers, they had the numbers, like the exponential numbers of Arabs in Judea and Samaria applying for visas, and it's so easy for them to get permits to leave. And they go to South America, and I'm sorry, U.S., but they also go to the United States. They go to Chicago and all over America. They're getting out. Like, you get past all the politics and the boots on the ground, practical implications. Arabs want to leave. Israel wants to build up the heartland of Israel, and that's a smart move. That's the future. So we just have to get past the politics. Israel has to make the decision that's best for them.
I think it's beyond all that. It's like the literally it's beyond us at this point. It's like you have so many people that are just saying, here we are, God, do what you want to do. And that's the role of the nation of Israel. It's just to be God's people, just like they always have been. And I feel like it's going on such a massive, a beyond us moment right now where all of this is just coming to fruition, just like the prophecy said that would happen. And now I'm looking at a prophecy like you just read, Ari. And I'm like, well, now's the time of prophecy being fulfilled on the planet. It's like a visitation of prophecy on the earth. Are we going to see 90 days from now another one?
Well,
I don't know.
It's 9 months from now is when that.
It's not enough to just be God's chosen people. It's not enough to just be here. We literally, well, the call of this generation is to apply sovereignty in the land of Israel.
Yeah.
You think about 2 Torah portions ago, there was the sin of the spies. And that is considered the gravest sin in the entire Torah. It was worse than the golden calf, worshiping idols right after receiving the 10 commandments. It was worse than Korach, that trying to overthrow Moses. The sin of the spies, why is that the beginning of the 9th of Av, where the first temple is destroyed, the second temple is destroyed, speaking illy of the land of Israel? Why is that such a big deal? Why is that the gravest of all sins? So some people could say, well, God loves the land. Don't speak illy of the land. But there's something much deeper than that. The world is going into an era where everything is going to be fake. Everything is going to be AI. No one will know what's the truth. No one will know what's a lie. There's only one truth in the world. And that is that God promised this land to the people of Israel. And if we apply sovereignty, that's undeniable for anyone that has replacement theology, that anyone that denies God's existence, that one promise was given in the Bible and one promise is being fulfilled. You can't fake it. And so right now it's amazing. As the dust is settling, it's like 2-state solution. Israel wants to apply sovereignty. What is it all about? It's all about the land of Israel. And until we, the chosen people, choose the chosen land, that's really when we fulfill our destiny.
Because when we choose the chosen land chooses us. The prophets of Israel say it again and again and again. I'm not going to read all of the prophecies, but that when the nation of Israel returns to the land of Israel, when Jews return to Judea, Ezekiel, for I will take you from among the nations, gather you out of all the countries, and bring you into your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean. A new heart also I will give you, and a new spirit I will put within you. I will put my law in their inward parts and write in their hearts. There will be a circumcision of the heart. This is what God is saying. So when we declare sovereignty over the land of Israel, that energy of our return to God happens in a way that is beyond our own doing. Mm-hmm. God will fill us with his spirit even more so. And that's why there's such a resistance and a hatred for it.
Yeah, I really want to add to that, meaning that prophecy says that the people of Israel are going to come back to the land of Israel. And they're going to need a new heart. They're going to have a heart of stone that will be replaced. It will need God's spirit for us to actually follow the commandments. I was just reading an article on Ynet, one of Israel's top internet news websites. And it says that after the war, 63% of Israelis are praying more. 59% of Israelis are talking to God more. And 45% are reciting the Psalms more. And so we're seeing this prophecy that somehow the people of Israel are coming back, communist, secular, kibbutznikim. They're going to come back totally secular. It was a godless movement. That's why the religious sort of stayed away from Zionism. And then as we're in the land, a process is going to happen that's going to bring us back to God. And we literally are seeing stats right now. Ynet is a totally secular mainstream news website.
Yeah, they have no interest.
Reporting that 63% of Israelis are praying more and talking to God more. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, so just something I've been going through this past week. I've really struggled. I've shared it a lot with people. I've struggled with my own faith. Not does God exist, but more like, what is God doing right now? It really felt like we were on the cusp of Armageddon, of redemption, right. On the cusp of what felt like it could truly be all out redemption, that the face of the world would change forever, that the darkness would be expunged and light would shine and illuminate. And then the next day, 7 holy, sweet soldiers killed in fighting in the country. The Hilltop youth, are they bad? Are they evil? Should we have a talk of the 2-state solution? Just all of the same stuff. And I'm like, has nothing changed? Are we right back? Were we right on the verge of redemption? Now we're back to the same thing. And then when you look a little bit deeper, it's almost like when God is bringing redemption, the evil energies, the evil forces are fighting against that. So there needs to be distraction. Whereas under the surface, if you look under the surface, exactly what Jeremy said, that's what's happening. The hearts of the people are being revived and waking up, and sovereignty over the land of Israel, and dancing on the Temple Mount, and significant, real things are changing on a deep spiritual, even the Prime Minister Netanyahu. Some people are very skeptical and cynical about the fact that he had his phylacteries on and the talit, and he's talking about God for the first time. They're saying he's using it as a prop to appeal to the nation, which, by the way, even if that is true, it is a commentary on the fact that he understands that this is the way to appeal to the nation now. But I think we have to believe in the heart and the repentance of every single Jew. And I think that it's happening in his heart as well. The nation as a whole, including him, are returning our hearts to the God of Israel. And now this 9 months from now, or whenever it is that this thing happens, that this war erupts, and Trump's calculations are different, and Iran and China have a time to wait a second. Let's look at what happened there. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again. How do we make sure that we're in on it this time? He's going to do it this time. How are we going to respond and stay in this war? And now it will be a World War III, and the MAGA right-wing isolationists are screaming in his ear. Maybe he steps back, and then Israel is all on our own.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to be too negative, but I'm just looking at the positivity of what's happening here in Israel, aside from the challenges. Like, we're seeing challenges, but overall, we're amazingly positive growth that we've all just talked about. What I'm seeing in the nations is far from that. I'm seeing 200,000 people gather this week in England and chanting, "Death, death to the IDF." Crazy. Like, I would never dreamed. It was like, when I saw that, it kind of like, it was like this wave of like a massive hit to me.
That was also aired, by the way, on the BBC for all of England to participate. It wasn't just for that local concert. It was broadcast all over the country.
So you have 200,000 people
Don't they say
gathered.
that Europe is only like 10 years ahead of America in terms of like,
I don't know how
immorality and like.
Well, this is also in England, where it is the #1 Western country that is imprisoning people for slightly offensive tweets.
Right.
Meanwhile, it's
goes
broadcast on BBC, "Kill the IDF, death to the IDF."
As far as I know, nothing's happened to him in the UK. Now, thankfully, America has banned this guy and is banned from entering America for their 24-day or 24 concert tour. But I haven't heard of any pushback in the UK itself.
The wave that hit me, though, was the reality of how quickly things can change. Because I wasn't ready for that in Europe. I wasn't ready for that in England. That hit me like, whoa, that's acceptable in England? Like, I know there was some pushback to it, but the fact that you could gather 200,000 people and all of them, it looked like, were chanting this, like that was acceptable, that was okay. That's a lot of people, and that represents, and the fact that it was live streamed on the BBC is normalizing the fact that it's okay to be that resistant, not even that violent against the state and the people of Israel.
Well, if we want to talk about America, the Trump administration just now gave $94 million in security grants to Jewish institutions across the United States.
Is that
I
right?
did see that,
$94 million to Jewish schools, to Jewish synagogues. And what's just unbelievable about that is that there's no money needed to go to mosques. No one's going to attack a mosque. And people are always like, Islamophobia. There's no Judaism-ophobia. No one's scared of the Jews. There's no Christianity-ophobia. There's no Buddhist-ophobia. It's only one element of society, and people are bringing them in. And that most of the people in that concert, they were like waving Palestinian flags, and they had like an Islamic, the head of the movement of jihad that is really sort of head by Iran. The Muslim world is divided into two. There's Shiite Muslims and Sunni Muslims. The Shiite Muslims have a messianic apocalyptic theology that they have to go out and kill the Jews in order for their messianic Mahdi to come back. So it's like built into the system that there's going to be a spiritual war. And until we recognize that this isn't a political war, that it's a spiritual war, then we don't stand a chance of really winning.
Right. What is death to the IDF actually saying? Well, on October 7th, when Hamas came in and was murdering and raping and beheading babies, women, the daughters of Israel, what stood between them and actually doing that to every single Jew in the country was the IDF.
Right.
And so when they're saying death to the IDF, they're saying death to all those who are even seeking to defend Israel. We want that to happen to every Jew. That is a genocidal call. And the genocidal energy of darkness, it's not just the Ayatollah that believes every drop of Jewish blood needs to be spilled before the 12th Imam arrives. But really, on a deeper level, there's so much of the West that is believing that. And so look at, have you been following Candace Owens? It's really unbelievable.
Trying not to.
I've been trying to be so charitable to her in my mind and in my heart because I was such a fan of hers. Talking about like speaking truth to the lies and truth to power. And she was like really speaking up to a lot of the liberal leftism and the godlessness. And now it's like a spirit of darkness. And even when I see her speak, her affect, her energy has been totally shifted. There's a rabbi that Jeremy and I have been very, very close with. Jeremy, since you were a kid, he's the principal. And talk about, as far as like settlers are concerned, he's pretty like liberal and leftist and interfaith and loving. And Candace came out on a tirade against him, accusing this 90-year-old man of giving Bitcoin to people to make videos about Candace Owen. It's so absolutely insanely absurd. And you don't even need to believe me. Look at her affect and the way she is speaking when she says it. Look at this.
And we're not telling you what to say. We're just telling you that if you were going to say something, let it be that Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson are anti-Semitic. And we're not giving you any proof of that other than this no string attached payment via Bitcoin, which is kind of untraceable. Huh? What? This is crazy. This is crazy. Now, I'm going to tell you who sent this email. This is a developing, by the way, we are investigating here. This is a developing story, but I can tell you who sent this email. And I don't want this to be a stereotype, but it is Rabbi Shlomo. And he's based in Israel. Oh my God. No, Rabbi Shlomo, no. Shlomo, no. Gosh. Oh, Rabbi Shlomo. Deeply upset by this. Okay. Who's Rabbi Shlomo? Let's bring up this website. What's going on?
Right. So just look at that. There's like just such a darkness, almost like a, what's the word?
A demonic spirit.
Like a demonic spirit. It's so overwhelming. And you see it also in Tucker Carlson. You know, I've really been a believer in my life in intellectual honesty, in truth. When an honest man learns that he's mistaken, he either ceases being honest or he ceases being mistaken. And although it's being very, very clear, not only on their deepest theological level, that they say, now what's Tucker's main thing? That the Jews of Israel aren't the real Jews, right? What were you just saying before about this? The irony.
Oh, right. Well, that never happened before in world history. You never had anybody saying, because that was just a fact. You can't just say Americans aren't Americans anymore. These people group is no longer that people group. That's ridiculous. Nobody's ever tried to just say you weren't that. Even the finest of anti-Israel people of the past never did that. Martin Luther never said the Jews weren't the Jews.
I need to say, why has it never even been attempted? Because for the last 2,000 plus years, the Jews have been, from the Inquisitions to the Holocaust to the pogroms. We've been beaten. We've been downtrodden. So everyone's like, yeah, God betrayed his covenant with them. He hates them. And he steps on them and smashes them out of because he despises them. Clearly, they're the Jews. But now that all the prophecies of the Bible are being fulfilled through those very Jews, now all of a sudden, oh, wait a second. No, they're not the Jews.
Martin Luther even has quotes saying that if the Jews ever came back to their land, then mockingly, if they ever would, obviously look around you, look at the Jews. They're in the squalors and in these terrible places. They'll never rise because that's God's judgment on them. If they ever did come back, I could believe that they were the chosen. Like literally, that's what he mockingly said. And today, people are far worse than what Martin Luther was.
Right. To me, it strengthens my faith that they are questioning the fact, are the Jewish people, while they're standing up for the Palestinian people, which are an entirely fake nation that was made up in the 1960s and 70s in order to delegitimize Israel. They have no ethnic background. They have no history. The father of the Palestinian movement was Yasser Arafat. He was born in Egypt. Like, what is the Palestinian people? And they're saying the Jews are not the Jews, like the most ancient people on like the modern world. Right. And that the fact that it's like so perfectly coordinated only strengthens my faith.
And when you go across the entire spectrum, I just saw Tucker Carlson defending Zohran Mamdani, right? He said, he gave the disclaimer. Clearly, I disagree with all of his policies. But when all of the potential mayors stood up there in New York and they said, what foreign country would you go to? They all pretty much said Israel. And Zohran said, no, I'm here in America. This is where I would stay. And he doesn't care about the Jewish lobby, and he's overcoming that. And he's the only one that cares about, and like all of a sudden there's this strange bedfellow between Tucker Carlson and Zohran Mamdani where he's defending him and saying he's the only one talking about the economy. And
I think there's a verse in the Bible that talks about calling good evil and evil good. And like that feels like every day when you look at the latest rhetoric, especially from the so-called right now, it feels literally like what's happening right in front of our eyes is what's true and real and practical and makes sense is now being called bad and extreme and radical. And the opposite is saying that, the same thing. I don't think we need to like cover the details of the whole story with the settler violence that happened this week, but I know we put a video out. Justin did a video on our channel covering the details of what really happened, what's going on behind the news. You wrote an article in JNS that was just amazing. But I think it's important because on the same topic, it's important to bring out. Everybody talks about settler violence. So we're going to hopefully have someone on the Israel guys soon to talk about the real data, the facts, the statistics, so that you can see for yourself that this is not a real thing. But I think it's just important to note there is no such thing. There's no such thing as settler violence. There's no such thing as this like massive radicalized extremist movement that are just bent on committing violence and destruction. There should be no category for it, and the world has made a category for it. Is there crime? That's what I always say. Yes, of course there's crime. There's crime anywhere in the world, but it's nothing to where that needs to have this own special category that's demonized and radicalized. You guys were talking about
exploding in the media, and there's a reason.
You guys have known a lot of these guys, and like you've had them come through your farm. They're amazing people. Are there incidents where they have done wrong things? Of course they have, but it's called crime. It's called misdemeanors, and it's dealt with by the Israeli law, right, by the police. But I just think it's like you got to know people are calling what's evil good. And what's good evil, and that's the same thing that's happening with this situation.
But could there be a sinister motivation behind the explosion of news and focus on behalf of a lot of the Israeli media on these settler youth? Why? Because now all of a sudden Trump breathed the words two-state solution, and now the left is like, wait a second, we could get back into that game again? We could do that again? Well, how do we do that? We foment a rift between settlers and the rest of the country. We make it seem like these kids are the tip of the spear of the settler movement, and they're fighting against the IDF, which is sacrosanct right now, right? It's like so holy, and the whole nation is behind them. So to pit these settler kids against the IDF, when at our farm, we've had probably hundreds of these kids come through. They go on to be in some of the most elite units in the IDF. They don't have hate in their hearts for the IDF. There's a deeper, more sinister motivation happening behind this narrative that's being created. And so that's why that was what sort of inspired me to want to write this article. Like, no, you're not getting what these kids are about. You're not getting what this is about. Also, this security equipment, millions of shekels of security equipment that was destroyed by them. I have questions about it. Yeah. We're not beyond reproach in Israel for things to be engineered and to happen. Maybe some of these kids did it, and they're definitely outliers that are not representative of the Hilltop youth movement. But why was this massive installation of critical security equipment totally unguarded?
Yeah.
There's anybody could just come, sitting out in the open for anybody to come in. There was also a 14-year-old little settler kid, couldn't have been more than 110 pounds, shot in the shoulder, went through the back, in critical condition right now. Like, there's something deeper happening.
The fact that it was a 14-year-old, like, I still don't even know 100% of the details, but like the fact that it was a 14-year-old should cause anybody to pause and to, like, what could a 14-year-old have been doing to warrant being shot by an IDF officer?
When I was 14, I put rubber bands around my ankles of my pants and filled my pants up with candy bars and stole them from stores. I literally was doing stuff like that at the age of 14. Okay, so like to warrant or justify anything like that is just beyond, and you don't hear about any of that stuff. And I've just seen over the years taking these kids, throwing them into administrative detention without any sort of even accusations against them to the maximum amount of time. Meaning, do you know what administrative detention is?
It like basically means they can be held without charge for as long as they decide, right?
I don't know for as long as they decide, but I think that there's a very long sentence.
But it's basically like before they're charged with anything, so they can kind of, it's like an open-ended, like we're just going to hold you.
Without any charge and just putting them in. And I went to some of their trials and I saw what was being hurled at these kids, and I know who these kids are, and they're so incredible. And so even if it's true, all of the things that are said about them, I think that they deserve our guidance, our compassion, our love, and our gratitude to them for what the movement of these Hilltop youth are doing in pushing forward the nation of Israel into the land of Israel. And
we're talking about sovereignty right now. Sovereignty would be not even a topic without these guys, without the farms that are holding down the vast majority of the land of the state of Israel inside of Judea and Samaria. There's state lands here. An overwhelming majority of the state lands are not held by the 500,000 the communities, the yeshuvs that are built here. The Jewish civilians that live here are not holding down the mass amount of land.
Right, there's
It's-
actually
it's these farmers.
2% of Judea and Samaria
That's
are
right.
actually settled by communities. 98% is up for grabs. And these farms that are across the land are the ones that are actually holding down the fort, holding down the land.
That's right. And it's en masse. I mean, they're holding down like thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dunums of land.
Well, you know, in the early 1940s, in 1948, there was the Lehi, the Freedom Fighters of Israel, and they were called the Stern Gang. And they were positioned as criminals, as just the worst. And now, looking back in history, they're the heroes of 1948. They're the ones that fought the British. They're the ones that without them, we wouldn't have a state of Israel. And I just know that history will write the books looking back at these Hilltop youth, realizing that they are the avant-garde, that they are the heroes of Israel, that they weren't chasing money, they weren't chasing power. They literally were just so committed to settling the land of Israel that they gave their lives to that cause. And they'll be remembered for that one day.
Yeah, you know, their competitions, the equivalent of their TikTok. You know, I remember just like, you remember that shepherdess girl that was like, you know, all the girls like David so much, but they're just into him for his sheep.
Yeah,
like
they're
I
just
really love
by his
blinded
sheep.
by his sheep.
Yeah.
You know, and these kids go out to the fields and they play the harp and they don't just recite Tehillim, the Psalms, they compose them. They're walking barefoot through the mountains. They're not, and when they're attacked by these Arabs, and very often the IDF is defending and protecting the Arabs. So, and they're so viciously attacked, then they say, we're going to fight back. I feel like they must be looked at very much like the followers of Saul looked at the followers of David in those times. And that's not saying that there's not, you know, there's always got to be a distraction. There's going to have to be outliers that are actually super violent. Like, really, that could be the case that we have a number of them that are super violent. I know it's a very, very, very small percentage against Christians, against fellow Jews, against the IDF. Yeah, and maybe that's also reactionary, but it doesn't justify it. You know, but at the same time, when you look at them as a movement, that's why I'm actually trying to organize buses to bring people from Tel Aviv. I want to bring all these people that hate them so much and say, you hate them so much, sit with them for 2 hours.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going to emerge from that. Maybe not, you're not going to agree with them ideologically, but just the human to human, the Jew to Jew connection, seeing what they're doing, seeing what they're about, seeing their hearts. Who you are tends to speak so much louder than what you say. And I think that that's really an important thing, because why is it? Let me just ask you this. Why is it that it's so important to some of these left-wing Israelis to create this false moral equivalence? That's what they really are excited about. Right. Okay, they have their Hamas and we have our Hilltop youth, and that's pretty much just extremists on both sides. They need to believe that, because there's something so unsettling about seeing the uniqueness of Jew hatred in the world, that it transcends all potential reasons. When we're rich, it's because we're taking all the money. When it's poor, it's because we're parasites on society. When we're capitalists or we're communists, it always transcends throughout history all reason to just being smoke screens and pretexts for a deeper Jew hatred that they get from their mother's breast milk, right? And so what is it really about? They don't want to believe that there's something transcendent about us as a people. There's something unique about us. There's something godly about us that causes the nations to hate us for no reason. So they want to believe in this moral equivalence, that there's something bad about us that is worth hating.
Right.
I think that that's a big part of it. It's important to understand the psychology of what's driving it.
I think there's no doubt in the world right now, in my mind, that there's something behind the scenes on this whole story, that there is a coup. There's no doubt. We're seeing one of the biggest champion moments of the whole settler movement moments away. Obviously, they're going to try. Somebody is behind the scenes. Some very, source that's trying to pit these different parties against each other. The settler movement and the political move. They're trying to make an enemy between them and the military. They're trying to sow discord. It's very, very obvious that there's something underneath, because this whole story makes zero sense. So I think just for everyone outside to understand, this is a really big deal within Israel. It's become really massive news. There's not a lot of information coming out about it, and it's already been a week. It's like, wait, why is there nothing really coming out about this?
Yeah,
there is something big time under the scenes that's trying to delegitimize the settlement movement.
It's super important for anybody watching or listening. We've been here for like 20 years. You guys have spent you've put your lives into this. You guys live in Judea. We're here in Samaria. We've brought over 3,000 people to Judea and Samaria for weeks at a time. We brought probably tens of thousands to visit you guys as well. Like, if we were to put all, like, we have buses come out on a regular basis. You have buses come to the Argoat farm. As soon as people, and like exactly what you're saying, Ari, as soon as people see it for themselves and they look you in the eye and they meet the beautiful people here and they see the heartland right up close, their entire perspective changes, and they realize everything we see in social media, everything we see in the media is 100% opposite of what is happening in real life. So I think for this particular story, and anytime you see news headlines like this, you should immediately think there's something going on behind the scenes that's not being revealed. Normally, it does come out eventually, but typically it's like after the story has already died in the media, because unfortunately, attention spans are so short. So I can guarantee you the story will come out of exactly what's going on here. And it's important to wait for that. And it's really important to know there's something else going on behind the scenes. And it's not nearly what the media is saying, for sure. I know we got to wrap up. Josh, do we want to talk about anything about Bibi's upcoming trip to Washington? He's going to Washington, D.C. on Monday. That's July 7th, I believe.
Well, I think it's just timely that he's going, and he most likely will be talking about, hopefully his discussion is going to look something like what we just had.
He might be talking about sovereignty and a potential two-state solution. It's like, right. I'm always saying it's 50-50 chance, like which way we're going to go here.
We're talking to some Jewish guys, actually the governor of the South Hebron Hills yesterday, and on a project we were doing down there, and one of our guys told him, well, either the temple will be rebuilt or they're going to create a Palestinian state. I mean, like literally we have these two, like a 50-50 chance. We're going to see the worst possible scenario where the 22nd Arab state's created as a launching pad for Iran to attack the Jewish state, or we're going to see sovereignty, and we're going to see the Jewish expression come out in the land of Israel like never before. That is literally the Torah going forth from Zion, as the prophets foretold, in the building of the temple. It's so opposite of each other, but literally we're at that moment.
Tweak that a little bit. It's not either the temple will be built or the Palestinian state. Either the next thing that happens is we're on the cusp of building the temple, or we first need to go through this Palestinian state thing and blah, 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 and that will lead to the temple. But the temple is an inevitability.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is not one or the other.
What I wanted to say is, like 80 years ago, the Jews were in Auschwitz, quite literally, and we were in gas chambers scattered around the world. And where we've come in 80 years, so many processes had to go, so many revolutions, the establishment of the state of Israel, the revival of the Hebrew, so from gas chambers in Auschwitz, in 80 years from now, to get to a house of prayer for all nations and the Torah going forth from Zion, we're so close. So it's just a matter of time. It's just a hold on tight. And this visit with Trump, DC, Abraham Accords, once it's tied to a Palestinian state, it almost loses the beauty of the Abraham Accords.
Well, he'll be making the same mistake that every president before him did, and the reason why it never went through. And I think someone needs to tell him that. He's got this faith advisory board. Somebody from the faith side needs to be able to tell Trump, because from a deal maker side, this whole thing makes sense, but Israel's not a place that makes sense.
Do you know who from the faith side needs to tell him? Benjamin Netanyahu, right? The nation of Israel needs to be from the faith side.
Yeah,
like in the four of us, it's a little bit refreshing that I think maybe it's 60-40 as far as like prophecies quoted are from the Jews over the Christians, which like you guys are very prophetic and very, very sanctified and holy people. Yes. But like, that's the way it should be. We should be a nation that is quoting the words of God to the world and putting our faith and our trust in God. And that's why, I have
a Jewish prophecy pulled up. I didn't get a chance to share, but I was actually going to say, it feels funny for me to pull this out, but since you gave me the idea, I put it into Chat GPT, and you guys can tell me if this is actually if this is a real piece of commentary from the sages. I think it's from maybe Rabbi Cook, but basically it's the idea that the slowness of the redemption process is vital to the foundation of Geulah, of redemption. I've heard that quote, I think, from Rabbi Melamed here in the Mount of Blessing, very well known in Israel. And you were talking about the redemption, so painful because we want redemption fast. We want, now. And ultimately it's usually a very slow process. But, you guys tell me, is that an idea of the sages that like the slowness of it is actually critical to its foundation? It's based on the
sunrise, that the sunrise just happens very slowly. It's like dark, getting a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. And like the sunrise of a new day, it's going to happen in stages, and it's going to happen slowly.
But right before that first glimpse of the sun, that's when it is the darkest, right? It's darkest right before the sun comes up. And so that's where I think we're in those times right now, where even I try to live and breathe faith, and I talk to God every day, but I'm like, what is happening? Help me make sense of this, God. We were on the verge of redemption, and now we're into the same thing. It's so demoralizing. And that's where we really need to hold on tight. These are the times to hold on tight to our faith, to the surrender that God is in charge, and he is playing this thing out as it should be played out, that he knows it should be played out, because we as myopic human beings just see the right now, and he sees the greater picture and what really needs
look
to
what's
happen.
happening. Our enemies are saving us. Witkoff and Trump tried to do a ceasefire deal with the Hamas, and the Hamas rejected it. It's like our enemies are saving us from ourselves, that they're not letting us not finish the job, that we will have to remove Hamas from like the existence in the land and hopefully take sovereignty also.
And not only are
over
they
Gaza.
saving us from ourselves, but they're coming in and demanding, right? Saudi Arabia came in and said a precondition to us having any peace with Israel and the Abraham Accords is that you need to remove Hamas from leadership, right? Saudi Arabia made that demand. Am I wrong? Do we need to edit that out? That was true. I remember
Totally
reading. I was
true.
like, what? They're making that demand? Why is it that these things have to be floated by our enemies rather than, or not even by our enemies, but by others, rather than what is so clearly right before us?
I'm really looking forward to this meeting with Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. With speaking about the sovereignty issue is obviously the biggest possible thing. The ceasefire in Gaza, I'm less excited about, because I feel like it's going to be like one of these things again where he's pushing it from the wrong view, the wrong narrative. He's wanting to just get the peace,
It's all
right?
about,
Just
like
what he
what
did
can
with
we
Iran.
trade back and forth here? No,
Right.
that's not what it's about. A ceasefire should be like, you
Win.
surrender, give us back all of our hostages, lay down your arms, leave Gaza, and then yes, we can agree that.
Right,
Not
World
like,
War II, Japan and Germany.
We'll give you 1,000 terrorists in exchange for 2 hostages. Like that's so
Obliteration
stupid.
to where there's no, because if there's any chance that they're going to claim victory, he's going to claim victory.
Yeah.
So Trump's like, how could he claim victory? Because he doesn't know the Ayatollah. He doesn't know these people, that it's all about the narrative. And clearly there is something to what they're saying. They're claiming victory, and now they're talking about a Palestinian state, of course, funded by Iran. It's just re-strengthened. He even said that Iran can now trade oil with China, and that the Arab states and that America is going to be giving $30 billion to the reconstruction of Iran. What do you think the Arabs are thinking when they're like, Saudi
obviously
Arabia,
a
they're
win.
on the verge of, yes, the Abraham Accords, a strong America, strong Israel, and now he wants to rebuild Iran under the Ayatollah with $30 billion because he thinks that these are normal, logical players. So he just beat them down, and now he's going to come in and be benevolent, and they're going to receive that as kindness and benevolence. It's going to bring peace. He doesn't understand that they see that as absolute weakness, which on some level is exactly what it is.
Well, I think this goes into our last point that I think Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be talking to Trump about. The sovereignty, the ceasefire, the hostages in Gaza, and then it's this is he's going to be speaking about this normalization with Syria, which would really, I'm very concerned about. I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I'm looking at this
Kind of
like,
just blows my mind.
wait.
I can't even wrap my mind around that.
I can't wrap my mind around it. I don't think anybody can. And I don't think there's a lot of information. People don't understand what Syria represents, who those people are. I love
Old
what's
Syria
happening.
or new Syria. That's like, there's not like one is better. They're just, it's awful.
There's one good thing that I think that's happening and that is the land of Israel is about to be expanded, hopefully, at least in a big, large piece of land in South Syria. But Jeremy, I would want to hear from you. What do you think this conversation is going to be like with Benjamin Netanyahu in regard to what's happening in Syria? Like, he's going to Trump with something about here. Trump is going to be really hot to get a Abraham Accords extended.
Well, imagine what a disaster it would be if we make some sort of fake peace deal with ISIS jihadist leadership in Syria, and we have to give up land in the land of Israel to create a fake Palestinian state. I mean, it would just be a disaster upon disaster. But I just feel like the same way that God hardened Pharaoh's heart, that God is able to harden the hearts of the enemies of Israel in order to get his will accomplished. And, we just look from a bird's eye view and we look at the Temple Mount. Israel is on a trajectory. Israel is going to win, and Israel is rising like a lion. And I just feel like everything that's happening, it's all for the good, and redemption is near.
One last thing about the sunrise. It's always, if you ever watch sunrise, it feels like it takes forever, right? Because it's so slow. But as soon as it peaks, you turn your back, and 30 seconds later, and that sun is like up in the sky. Meaning it's the instant the sun hits, the instant redemption hits, then it's full blown, full blast, full steam ahead. I think that's pretty exciting. All right, guys. Make sure, I would love to hear from you guys what you think. If you got any predictions, it's so funny because I'm never into predictions and like personal but like these are crazy times we're living in. So if you guys have thoughts, if you have dreams, if you have predictions or things that you're reading or hearing back, put it down in the comment section because
one of the things
Ari reads every single comment. So he would love to hear from you.
And that one guy that said I interrupt too much, you ruined my day. But anyway, you interrupt too much. Anyways, no, but I want to talk to you guys about the Israel summit.
Yeah.
Right? That's in some ways like our enemies are always sort of guiding us in the right way. So it got the summit canceled in Texas, which is a certain commentary about Texas. We said, well, they just didn't have time to prepare for this. But now it seems like there's a lot of problems arranging it anywhere, which is leading you to the realization that possibly you're going to have to do it in Israel.
Maybe on the Temple Mount.
How about, hey, if they just said we can have full prayer, worship, and dancing on the Temple Mount, Jeremy, that sounds like something you need to lead.
Israel Summit on the Temple Mount.
Israel Summit on the Temple. Yeah, that would really.
Can we do a live stream? Can you talk to Ben-Gvir about that? Can we do live streams from the Temple Mount? That literally
no, but I think it's supposed to be from Israel.
Yeah.
For from Zion,
You're right.
the Torah will come forth and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Right.
We're at the point in history now where it's supposed to be in Jerusalem. And those that love Israel with such a zeal, they're invited from all around the world to come out. And we'll do some stuff around it. We'll do some stuff a few days before it.
You can come
we'll
to
do
the Mount
some
of
stuff
Blessing. You can come to the Arrowgoat Farm. Yeah.
We'll do some fun hikes. It'll be fun. We'll make a whole thing out of it.
That's
and
right.
I think the people that are truly zealous, that have the capacity and ability from around the world, they'll come, and we'll get just as many in Jerusalem, if not double than we would have in Texas.
Amen. Stay tuned, guys. Definitely don't want to miss it. Guys, as always, actually, Jeremy, do you want to spend like 60 seconds just talking? Because we always mention the Land of Israel Fellowship, but I feel like you should just explain to people, like, what is the fellowship? Tell them what they're missing out on.
This is sort of a fellowship. You know, it's like people from all different backgrounds that come together to talk about what they love to talk about. So this is more politics. It's more about current events. But Ari and I, my wife, Tehila, once a week, we have a fellowship. We broadcast live on Sunday, and it's really a global community. It's a movement of people that are shifting towards becoming more biblical, that are becoming a little bit more Israelite connected. They're becoming more Torah oriented, and they want to learn the Torah from Zion and the word of God from Jerusalem. And it's a growing movement, and it's a community of people from 50 countries around the world, and it's marvelous.
And it's not uniform. It's not like, oh, you have to believe in these precepts in order to be a part of it. There's a wide spectrum of people that believe many different things, but what brings them all together is that they love the nation of Israel, the God of Israel. They're drawn to learn Torah from rabbis, from Jews, and we get a lot of pushback from them, and I love it because it's always from a place of love and respect and truth seeking. We have fellowship connections at the end where people ask questions and share thoughts. We have someone that aggregates all of the prayer requests, so we're all praying for each other on our personal lives. So although sometimes there's different theological things, we all love each other so much that I know whose son isn't speaking to them and whose daughter is getting surgery, and we're praying for each other. It's really become a community that is, I think, very unique in the world.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Were you going to say something?
No, just as a member of the fellowship, I think that, my wife and I almost never miss a week. It's always very inspirational. And I think that's what we need from Israel today. If you're just locking into the news and you're seeing a lot of times the hard side of the reality, one of our supposedly great uncles, Mark Twain, said that the lies travel the world 10 times over while the truth is still getting its boots on. That's really sad. And it's really the truth should be more powerful.
We have to work harder
and we
to
have
get
to
a hold
work
of the
hard
truth.
to get a hold of that truth. And it's not going to be on the big screens of the lies are going to be what travels, and the misinformation. To dig into the truth is what's happening at the fellowship. And I feel like it's inspirational. It's something that feeds you life. It's not something that's going to drag you down. And so I would just encourage everybody.
Yeah.
So
This
if
is
we're
something
already
big
telling
time.
people about it, we'll say there's thelandofisrael.com. You could go there to learn about
We'll
it.
put a link
Or
in
you
the
can also
in the
send an
description,
email
yeah.
to Tabitha at thelandofisrael.com. She will also be able to help you out and connect you. She's like the heart in many ways of the fellowship on a real level. So that's we appreciate that, guys.
Yeah,
And,
no, we'll make it easy for y'all. We'll put the link in the description. It's a great way to support Jeremy and Ari and the Argo Farm and the Land of Israel Network.
Support settlement in Judea,
You got
Luke.
our endorsement. Yeah.
Support settlement of Judea. That's literally what's
Do
the
it.
task.
Guys, you gotta do
We're
it.
all about that.
All right, guys. Make sure to find out about Jeremy and Ari's work, thelandofisrael.com. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with what's really happening, boots on the ground here in the Land of Israel. We'll be back very soon here at the Israel Guys.